Okay, you guys, I'm getting really excited. We're getting closer and closer to actually finishing up this entire project. So the next part that I am going to be working on will be the jacket. So this is where we are now. We are at step... Oh, they relabeled them. Okay, so we're at step 1 for what they're calling the vest with pieces 8 and 9. Okay? So, first thing we're going to do is stay stitch the neck edge of vest front 8. So 8 is the one that has the darts. And actually, let me show you this really quick. They haven't said to do it in the instructions. Let me double check that. Oh, nope, I take that back, they do. Make dart in front and stay stitch the neck edge. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this dart because I just rather do that first. So as per usual, I have already marked out my darts like I like to do, and I'm going to pin both of these together and then I will stitch those on the sewing machine. Okay, you guys should be experts at this by now. We've had to make so many darts for this dress. Alright, there's one. Mark my end point here. Alright, let's set that one aside. Let me pin the other one really quickly. I cannot wait to see what this all looks like when it's finished. Alright, marked my end point. Let's quickly pin these together. Okay. Now let me rearrange these things so you can watch me stitch the darts. Alright, let's get these darts done. So here we go with the first one, stitching, back stitching, and then I'm just going to follow that line that I've already drawn out. Alright, and then once I get to my dot here, do a little back stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just knot that loose thread there. Knot my threads together. Alright, that's one done. Finish up the other one. You guys are about to see some fast sewing because I am very eager to get this project done and move on to the next thing. I'm actually dreaming in purple at this point. Back stitch, then knot those. Such overkill back stitching and knotting. I don't know why I feel the need, but it really drives me nuts if I don't do it. Okay. Then I'm also going to stay stitch my neck edge here, so right there. I'm just going to do that. Not quite at 5/8 because I don't want that seam to be sticking out later, so I'm going to do it just very slightly inwards from 5/8. Alright, and now my next piece. I think the jacket's going to be really fast. Okay. Now let's see what the next part says. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is reinforce these large dots that we already marked on our piece 8, and I'm going to jump a little bit over into the next step because we're actually going to be doing the same thing for piece 9. So I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that dot on both of those pieces, and then also the piece 9 also gets stay stitching at the top at the neck. I'll show that to you really quickly. There we go, piece 9 stay stitching. So I'm going to do that now too. Just do it all together. Alright, so here is my piece 9. And this is my neck edge. Okay, so once again, just slightly less than 5/8. Okay, and then for the dots, you should have the dots marked, because when you cut the pattern out, of course, they were already marked there. So here's the side of the jacket, and there's my large dot. And they just tell you to do a regular 5/8 inch stitch here, and you do it for about 1 inch. Let me zoom in here so you can see this. Okay, so here's my dot, and I'm stitching 5/8 here, and they say to just do it for about 1 inch, so that's what we're going to do. And that's pretty good. So that is what that looks like. Don't worry if yours is a little bit less or a little bit more. And you're going to do that on all 4 of the seams. So this is my same piece 9 and just the other side. I'm going to do the same thing, 5/8 and about 1 inch down. Alright, so that finishes piece 9 for the moment, and I'll just set that aside. Now I'm going to do my dots on my other jacket piece. Now the other jacket piece doesn't have a dot on both sides, it just has a dot on one side. So you just need to do the dot on each side. 5/8 for about 1 inch. Alright. And then the last piece. Okay, moving on. Alright, so now that we have reinforced the dot on all of those pieces, we now need to clip to that dot. Okay, so here is my dot. You can see it right here. I'm just going to take the scissors and clip into that, but not through my stitching. So, not through the stitching, but very close to it, okay? Just like that. And then I'm also going to trim out all these little extra threads here because they just drive me nuts. Okay, so there's one. Let's do the next one. There's my dot, clipping to the stitching but not through it. Okay. And then for the piece 9, we have 2 dots here as well that have to be clipped. Okay. To the stitching, not through it. That one needs to come up just a little bit more. Okay. Last one. Need to get my scissors sharpened after this project. Okay, right after that you can actually go ahead and stitch your shoulders together. Alright, so I'll move this so you can see. So this is my right side of my fabric and right side of my fabric, and you're just going to be pinning them together at the shoulders. Okay, like this. Hopefully you can see this layout here a little better. Get the general idea? Okay, so let me pin the shoulders together here. This is real silk and it's very slippery. Okay, so you should have 2 notches here, and they do say in the instructions that you may have to do a little bit of fitting, like easing in the extra material, so I would recommend that you match up your notches first. Then match up the edges of your fabric. And then the rest of this you're just going to fit in. Ugh, I have so few pins left. Look at this. You guys have only seen a few videos of some of the things that I'm working on, and I actually have, I think I have 5 sewing projects going on at the same time right now. So my pins are all over my bedroom, pinned into different fabrics and pattern pieces, and because of that I have very few to work with right now. I only film about half the things that I actually make. Okay, I finished pinning that shoulder seam. So I'm just going to stitch this now at a regular 5/8. Okay. And I had to pin mine a lot. A, because I had to ease in fabric, and B, because this is real silk. And if you have not worked with real silk before, it likes to move around. It's beautiful, but it's a beast. Well worth the pain though, if you ask me. Alright, back stitching at the end there. Okay, so this one is all set. Now I just need to do that exact same thing for the other side. So I'm just going to pin this. I won't show this since we just did it, but I'm just going to pin this together the same way that I did the piece you just saw. I'm going to fit in the extra fabric, pin it, and then stitch it at 5/8. Once you have finished both of the seams, go to your ironing board and press your dart downwards. So press the dart down like this, and then your shoulder seams you want to press open. So you'll just press these open, okay? So do the other shoulder, press everything, then come back and join me again. Alright, moving on to the next step. Just as a reminder, you should have pressed open your shoulder seams and pressed your darts down. The next thing that they tell you to do is to go ahead and also do that for your lining piece, or in this case, this was my lining and this is my right side of my fabric. So basically you should have two pieces now, a right side of the fabric and also your lining fabric, and you should have done all of that to both of those. So now we are going to be putting those together. So the first thing you'll want to do is find your lining fabric. In this case, this is mine. And you're going to be pressing the little part that you cut open at the dot. You're going to be pressing that in 5/8. Okay? So these two pieces, just to show you how it's going to work, they're going to be put right sides together, of course. And you're going to be pinning them together. Now, the part that you cut open, your notch, oh, here we go, I'm on the wrong side. Okay, so here is the dot that you made, okay? And you'll have your right sides together, and you're going to press this in 5/8, like this, okay? So go ahead and press this before you pin it, just because it'll be easier, and I'll show you what mine looks like once I've pressed it and pinned it. Alright, this is about to be super interesting for me just because I have no pins, because I have pins in 5 projects. That will be a job for me this weekend. So, I have my right sides together, lining and right side of the fabric. This is where I pressed in the 5/8 on the lining, okay? So this is the most important part to note before you do your stitching. So this is the bottom. This is where the clip is, okay? You just press that open, and then you're going to pin that over at the top here. See how it's just pinned here? Because you're going to be stitching right there, okay? So once you have this pinned, you're basically going to stitch the entire piece together, and the only places you're not going to stitch together are here where you've done the 5/8 fold, and that's on this side and on the other side, okay? So pin everything together and stitch everything except for that folded section. Alright, you guys, you're about to see some crazy sewing from yours truly. Okay, I think I will start over here just because that's where I actually have the most of my pins. Okay. And you're just doing a regular 5/8 inch seam on this. and as I get to the corner here, I'm going to pivot. Okay. Now you should pin this, okay, just so everybody knows, you should pin this. Obviously I've already told you why mine is not pinned, so I'm just going to freehand this. And you are working with a little bit of a large piece, so do make sure that you move your fabric back there when it starts to be a bit too much. Get to the bottom and get to about 5/8. I'm going to flip that again. Now, mine is a little bit more than 5/8 here. That is because the piece underneath is shorter and I know that. So this is 5/8 for me. That wouldn't be a problem if I could actually pin this. Okay. Alright, and this is the part that I showed you on camera earlier. So we're getting close to the section where we need to stop and not stitch, where we made the 5/8 fold. Alright, so I'm going to stitch to that dot, back stitch, remove this. Okay. So that is all set there. Then I'm going to go to the top. So this is my 5/8 folded over to the inside, prepared for this stitching. Right. Make sure your seams match up. You can see that with the few pins that I did have, I definitely prioritized matching my seams. That is very important for your garment to lay nicely. Okay. I'm just going to take one of my free pins now and just pin together my edges here, because it makes guiding this through much easier. All right. Okay, need to go a little bit further to hit that 5/8. That's too far. That's good. Okay. Okay, so this is my other folded over section, so I'm actually going to stop there. So this is my other fold. Okay. Okay. So tricky when you don't have pins. Okay. Starting at the dot, stitching. And all I did was leave open that spot where I had my other 5/8 inch flap. I'm sure it's a panel or something, I'm just going to call it a flap. Okay. And now this is essentially finishing up the hem. Still just at that regular 5/8 inch seam. Alright. I'm just trying to keep everything at 5/8 regardless of when this happens. Okay. And I'm getting close to my next flap. So we're going to back stitch here at the dot. Okay. Now, this gets folded over 5/8. There, at least do need a pin for that. Even if just momentarily, keep that in place. Okay. Alright, now I have a seam here, so I'm going to make sure that my seams are open. And that they match up. Okay, so that one needs to be there. Alright, and I have another flap here, so I'm going to just go ahead and pin this as well. And I'll go to the bottom here. looks about like 5/8. Alright. And now I finally meet my previous stitching. Alright, and if any of you were wondering why I went so far over here, it's because I could feel underneath where 5/8 was. So, like I said, I would never recommend that you stitch this without pinning it, but I've been sewing a long time and I was not that concerned about it. So, that's all stitched up now. It's just left open at the side seams where the 5/8 seam allowance is pressed over. So, let's now look at the next step. Alright, the next thing that we need to do is trim out all of the excess. So, you'll basically go to your seams and just trim. I like to do about half. So right now I'm just taking out about half. Go as slowly as you need to make sure that you don't accidentally cut into any of your seam lines. You'll also want to do some clipping around the actual neck edge. Okay, so you're just going to clip like that throughout the entire thing. I'll also show you quickly on these. So anytime that you have an armhole or a neck edge, you'll want to trim out but then also clip. So to do the clipping, you're just going to go in like this and clip close to the seam line but not through it. And you'll just do it, you know, maybe once every inch or so. Once you try it on and see what it looks like, you may find that you need to go back inside and do some more clipping if it doesn't lay flat. You'll be able to tell once you try it on. So trim everything out, clip around the neck edge and also the armholes, and then come back. Alright, all of my seams are now trimmed. Actually, this one could use just a hair more. That's another thing, on the corners, you'll want to make your corners rounded just because they'll look much better whenever you turn this right side out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we just need to take one side of this and just start turning it out. Ta-da! Okay. So go through, press all the little things open. Here's a little thing. Where are there other little things? Here's a little thing. Okay. Okay. This would be a good time to just take a look to see if anything is not laying well. So, and not because it needs to be pressed, but because it actually needs to be clipped. So things like this where your lining's popping out, that just needs to be pressed down, so don't worry about that too much. What you're looking for is any seam that doesn't look like it's laying flat. Press this one. Okay. So this is actually looking pretty good. So your curved corners like this, they should be laying flat. And if they're not, then you need to clip there some more. See right here where this is just a little bit, it seems kind of taut and it's not really laying well? That tells me that I need to clip right there some more. So I'm just going to reach in to my dress here and grab that section so I know where to go. And then I'll just pull that section back out. And then I'll take the seam here and I'll just clip into that some more. Just be really careful that you don't clip into your actual jacket design. It probably seems crazy to you guys that I say that as often as I do, but it only takes one time for you to do it and feel sick to your stomach and never do it again. And I know that because of course I have done it myself. Okay. I always run my hand underneath so that I can feel exactly what I'm cutting into. Alright, let's try this again. Go back in, make sure it's pressed open. See that? That is laying much more nicely than it did before. It's just curved now. That's perfect. Okay, so I have not looked at the instructions yet, but I will tell you that from my personal experience, I am now going to take this to the ironing board, and I'm just going to give the whole thing a good pressing before I move on to the next step. Alright, we are now ready to piece together the sides. So, you have your jacket piece here, and you're basically pinning together your side seams. So your side seams have these open flaps like this that are already finished. That is what that should look like, and that is correct. So just make sure your lining is out of the way. Take your right side of your fabric, pushing the lining out of the way, and pin it together, okay? And once you've got that pinned together, you're just going to stitch that, making sure not to catch the lining underneath. Try to stitch it at 5/8, but you can see here how my fabric doesn't quite go that far. That's okay. Just start where you can, but don't grab anything that you're not supposed to. Double check underneath that you don't have that lining. All right. Perfect. Okay. And if you can't start quite at a 5/8 inch seam, like because of how mine was if you had something similar, just start where you can and then gradually move it to 5/8. So mine's now at 5/8. And just keep feeling underneath to make sure you don't sew that lining in there. Okay, and then as you get to the bottom here, once again, make sure you're not grabbing that lining. I can see that my seam is a little bit further over, so I'm not going to stick with this 5/8. I'm just going to start tapering so that I don't grab this inside of that seam. Okay, back stitch. Then take a look at it, just make sure you didn't grab anything you weren't supposed to. Okay? And then what you're basically going to be doing in the next step is you're going to be turning all of that in, and then you're going to hand stitch these closed. Okay? So I'll cover that in just a minute, but just to show you, this will be closed up, and that's what that's going to look like. And then on the outside, you have this. Okay? Alright guys, so I've already started the next step. This is what it's going to look like. Okay? So this is the right side of my jacket, and we put together our side seam already. So this is the right side of our fabric, right sides together. And then once you get to the inside here with the lining, you're basically just pinning that lining together. That's why you did that 5/8 pressing that you did, and you're just going to pin those pieces together and then whip stitch them closed. So this is where mine opens up here at the bottom, and this is where you should start whip stitching. And I am using a double threaded needle just because that's my personal preference. And you're just going to grab a little bit of both of your lining pieces and whip stitch them together. So it's a very fast, easy to do stitch. And you can decide if you want to do them a little bit closer than this or a little bit further apart. Alright, so this is what mine is looking like. And you're just going to do that for that entire seam. And then once you get to the top, you can do your knot. I will probably do a double knot because you guys know I'm paranoid about my knots for some reason. And you will trim off the ends and you'll be done. After that, I'm going to give this jacket one more really good pressing, and then I'm going to try everything on together so that you guys can see what my finished product looks like. Alright, so I'm not going to keep filming this. You should be able to do this based off of what you've seen so far. Just a very easy whip stitch. Alright, let's finish this up and try everything on and see what it looks like. Ta-da! Here is my finished, completed set. I'm very, very happy with it. I think you can tell that I am authentically happy right now. So here's the jacket, and then my little dress. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm actually kind of sad that it's fall now, and it's been really, really cold the last 2 days, so now I feel like I can't really wear it because I'm going to freeze to death if I wear it outside, but I will store it away safely for next year, or maybe I'll have some awesome event where I can, you know, pull it off with the right shoes. So if any of you have any questions about the pattern or the process, feel free to let me know. I'm super, super happy with the finished product, and it does take a while to sew the dress. However, I think it is well worth the time. I feel luxurious. Putting this on, I just feel very luxurious. I think what I'll probably do when I style it is actually do the retro hair look and pull everything up. Yes? Let's take a vote. Hair up or down? Up or down? You guys let me know. Okay, so if you have anything else that you would like to see me sew, feel free to ask. Also, please subscribe. Please subscribe. If you have other DIY things that you are kind of interested in, you can also send me those. I'm going to try to branch out into some other things, but sewing is definitely my #1 love. Yeah, just let me know what you guys want to see. And thanks so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.